I want to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rakak, Wadash. Double honors goes out to the elder apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me this truth. Also want to acknowledge all the Akyam pushing this truth throughout the four corners with sincerity, alright? So, the Spirit today has me in 1 Maccabees in chapter 2, alright? So the Spirit has me in 1 Maccabees 2, chapter 2, verse 1. And the setting is basically the Greeks have taken over Jerusalem, you know, and in the process, they've taken the 2/3 of the wicked Israelites and made them heathen also, and Gentiles. All right, this is literally Maccabees, 1 Maccabees chapter 1. If you read this chapter, you're going to find out that this is when the nation of Israel became heathen and Gentiles. All right, and really this is dealing with Southern Kingdom, because Northern Kingdom was already in the Americas during this time, but you know, there was still a remnant of Northern Kingdom in Israel. So Maccabees, 1 Maccabees chapter 1 explains when our people became Hellenized or became Gentiles, and really dealing with Southern Kingdom. All right, because Northern Kingdom was already in the Americas. They left after the Assyrian captivity during the time of Hosea. All right. So this is taking place right after the people are basically getting polluted and, you know, basically turning to the ways of the heathen. And this is why people are confused when they read the New Testament and they read about the Gentiles, because they don't realize that the Israelites were the Gentiles that Paul and the apostles were dealing with, you know, and teaching. So, without further ado, let me keep reading, 1 Maccabees 2. In those days arose Matthias, the son of John, the son of Simeon, a priest of the sons of Jarib from Jerusalem, and dwelt in Modin. And he had 5 sons: Johanan, called Cades, Simon, called Thasi, Judas, who was called Maccabeus. And this is not talking about Judas Iscariot. This is a different Judas, all right? Eleazar, called Avaron, and Jonathan, whose surname was Aphus. And when he saw the blasphemies that were committed in Judah and Jerusalem, he said, "Woe is me! Wherefore I was born to see this misery of my people in the holy city, and to dwell there when it was delivered into the hand of the enemy, and the sanctuary into the hand of strangers." So today you have the men who are sighing and crying in Babylon, and they won't hold their peace, right? We ain't holding our peace. We're revealing who the devil is, the so-called white man, the Edomite. And we're also revealing the wicked-ass 2/3, you know? So right here, hey, he was in the right mindset. He was like, you know, woe is me, meaning destruction is to me, therefore was I born to see the misery of my people. See? So he couldn't stand to see the nation of Israel, and this is Southern Kingdom predominantly, but he couldn't stand to see them acting like heathen, you know, not keeping the laws, not keeping the statutes, not keeping the commandments of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. See? So he was in a righteous mindset. He was thinking, you know, woe is me. I'm seeing the misery of my people. You've delivered our people into the hand of the enemy, you know, in the sanctuary in the hand of the strangers, all right? Let's read it. Her temple has become as a man without glory. So now, hey, a man without glory in the ancient world was, that wasn't a good thing. You want to have glory, as whether it be as a warrior or whatever it was in the nation of Israel, righteous prophet, But now the temple, hey, it was defiled, because um, the heathen were, they took it under siege, This is during the time when the Greeks basically Hellenized our people and took away. They basically polluted the temple. With the heathen shouldn't be dwelling in the temple of Israel, but that's what you have right now in Israel. You have what they call Israelis. They don't call themselves Israelites because the Bible speaks of Israelites, not Israelis. Okay, that's one clue. Show you that they're not the true people. Then you got 1 Maccabees 2:9. Her glorious vessels are carried away into captivity. Her infants are slain in the streets. Her young men with the sword of the enemy. And this is still happening. You see in the so-called blacks and Latinos, predominantly the so-called black tribes, hey, they're getting gunned down in the street, but you do have Latinos who are getting shot in the streets as well. But her infants are slain in the streets, her young men with the sword of the enemy. Because if you look at the so-called black woman, so-called Hispanic woman, they are leading the world in abortions, And you have Planned Parenthood, which is set up by the Edomites, a racist Edomite lady set that thing up, and basically, it's set up to, they know that predominantly the Israelites are going to be having abortions, Verse 10. But you know what? Let's get the balance, because in Psalms 137, it balances it out, because there's going to be a time the Lord puts a spirit on us to do what they've done to our infants, Psalms 137, and we'll start at 8. O daughter of Babylon, which is America. America is the daughter of Babylon, right? It's not actually Babylon, it's the daughter. That's why it's America, because it represents the daughter of Babylon. Who art to be destroyed, happy shall he be that rewarded thee as thou hast served us. See, the way you served us, you Edomites, you shot us down on the street, you killed our babies, you have our women, you're enabling them to kill their infants through the abortion process, Well, this is going to be balanced, There's going to be a time when the Lord puts the spirit on Israelites to, basically do the same thing. Verse 9, that's what it's talking about. King David was talking about this. Happy shall he be that taketh and dasheth thy little ones against the stones. See, we're not in that mindset right now. We wouldn't just take a baby and dash it against a stone. But hey, after Jacob's trouble, the Israelites are going to be in a different mindset, man. And we outnumber the heathen. That's why they're going to send those missiles ultimately. Because they're going to have a big problem, an innumerable problem on their hands. But the so-called white man will use his blessing, the sword, and, try to annihilate the whole nation of Israel with his missiles, which is your so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. Her glorious vessels are carried away into captivity. Her infants are slain in the streets. Her young men with the sword of the enemy. All right, and this is talking about Israel, right? Because we can go to Jeremiah 5:2. Oops. No, wait. Maybe it's Jeremiah 6:2. Yeah, Jeremiah 6:2. I have likened the daughter of Zion to a comely and delicate woman. All right, the daughter of Zion is Israel. All right, and it's likened unto a woman, comely and delicate woman. All right, not like these women here in Babylon. They're the opposite of delicate. But That's just saying, it's when you verse 9 when it says her glorious vessels are carried away into captivity, it's talking about that comely woman, Israel, Zion. All right. Verse 10, what nation hath not had a part in her kingdom and gotten of her spoils? So what nation on the planet Earth, especially these heathen nations, which one of them had not had part in the spoiling of Israel? Who has not benefited? Which one of these nations haven't benefited from the Israelites and their captivities? All of these heathen nations. You go to Psalms 83, gives you the list of our enemies, and all those nations. You got the so-called Chinese, the so-called Russians, so-called Israelis, so-called Jewish people, so-called American Edomites. All these nations have benefited from off the backs of the captives who are Israelites, and it's all punishment from the Father for our lack of obedience, turning away from our true power. See, so what nation is not taking part in the spoils? What nation hasn't benefited from Israelites, off the backbone of Israelites? And then let me focus also in verse 8. All right, her temple is become as a man without glory, because Yahweh compares us to a noble vine, and then we became a degenerate plant. Let's get that in Jeremiah. Yet I had planted thee a noble vine, holy, a right seed. How then art thou turned into a degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me? See, we were turned into the strangers. The word stranger, it means Gentile. How, let me read it like that. How then art thou turned into a degenerate plant of a Gentile unto me? A strange vine. You used to be a noble vine, Let's look up the word noble, just for edification. Belonging to a hereditary class with high social or political status, aristocratic. All right. So the aristocrats are the top of society. All right. And when you have the word noble, it means, hey, you're an heir. You're going to get an heir if you're an Israelite, right? But if you're a 2/3, it's not going to be the same as if you're part of that remnant. All right. Because the men in Maccabees, hey, they had that spirit of the remnant. They didn't have that 2/3 mentality. High social or political status, that's noble. So, now you're a degenerate plant. You see? That's that glory being washed away, when you read about it in 2 Maccabees. Her temple has become as a man without glory, you see? Verse 11, all her ornaments are taken away. Of a free woman she has become a bond slave. All right, because we used to be free, man. Now we have to report to the enemy for anything we want to do. You have to go to the Edomite, the so-called white man, if you want to drive your car around town. If you want to, you got to get insurance. You got to get a driver's license. You got to get a marriage license if you want to get married. You got to get a fishing license if you want to go fishing. You got to, you have to go to the Edomite for every single thing, But now we'll become a bond slave. That's what a bond slave is. Verse 12, and behold, our sanctuary, even our beauty and our glory is laid waste, and the Gentiles have profaned it. All right, and in the meanwhile, our people became Gentiles. Because why? Because they became like the heathen. You see? Verse 13, to what end therefore shall we live any longer? See, he didn't even want to, he was like, why should we even live, man? I don't want to see my people in this degenerate state. I don't want to see, and that's what the 2/3 today, right now, they're still following the heathen, but you have a remnant who are coming out of that. You have a remnant of the nation of Israel who are, right now you're calling them blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, but they're listening to this truth, they're hearing this truth, and it's resonating in their spirit, and they're realizing like, hey, I ain't supposed to be celebrating no Christmas. I ain't supposed to be eating no abominations. I ain't supposed to celebrate Mother's Day or my birthday, you know? And you're turning from those heathen customs. Verse 14, but you know, the Maccabees and the men in Maccabees, hey, they're in the right mindset. They're part of that remnant, part of that elect. Because why? Because let's read it. They don't even want to live any longer, like it says in verse 13, you know? They'd rather die than follow the ways of the heathen. That's the kind of mindset the men of the Lord of today are in, you know? We want to, leave, come out of her, my people, leave Babylon, you know? Verse 14, then Matthias and his sons rent their clothes and put on sackcloth and mourned very sore. All right, that was a tradition. You would put on sackcloth, which would be a humble garment, you know. That's why the men of GMS were all in humble garments, you know. We're not in fancy superhero outfits like the IUIC, you know. Verse 15, in the meanwhile, the king's officers, such as compelled the people to revolt, came into the city Modin to make them sacrifice. See, so you had the Greeks coming in, basically sacrificing our people. Hey, doing what they're going to do pretty soon with you guys in the microchip, the RFID mark of the beast. You see, they're gonna give you an option. Hey, you're gonna either take this chip or you're gonna get killed. That's what they were doing here in Modin, to make them sacrifice. That's what that means. Let me just get a point in 1 Maccabees 1:11, because this is talking about the 2/3. We're reading about a remnant in chapter 2. But let me read it. 1 Maccabees 1:11. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us, for since we departed from them we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. See? Let me read it. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. And that's why you're still doing that. See, because you're a heathen, you know, you're still acting like a heathen. Verse 17, actually, you know what, verse 16, and when many of Israel came unto them, Matthias also and his sons came together. Then answered the king's officers and said to Matthias on this wise, thou art a ruler and an honorable and great man in this city, and strengthened with sons and brethren. So this is the king's officers are negotiating with Matthias, you know. Well, he's already said he'd rather die than become a heathen, become a Gentile, a stranger to the power of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai. You see, verse 18, now therefore come thou first and fulfill the king's commandment, like as all the heathen have done, and the men of Judah also, and such as remain at Jerusalem, so shalt thou in thy house be in the number of the king's friends, and thou and thy children shall be honored with silver and gold and many rewards. See, so he's trying to buy him out, you know. That's what the so-called white man does, man. He'll buy you out. He knows that you 2/3 have a price, you know. And you know he knows you'll sell out, you know. But the remnant, they're going to have a different attitude, man. The 1/3 of Israel. Verse 19, then Matthias answered and spake with a loud voice, though all the nations that are under the king's dominion obey him and fall away every one from the religion of their fathers and give consent to his commandments, yet will I and my sons and my brethren walk in the covenant of our fathers. God, you see, this is your pa. This is standing being a real man, saying, hey, we ain't going to do this heathen shit. You know, we're going to keep it real. We're going to keep our fathers' laws, statutes, and commandments. God forbid that we should forsake the law and the ordinances. We will not hearken to the king's words. Say, you know, that's the remnant aren't going to take that microchip, the mark of the beast. The remnant are not going to, you know, we're not going to listen to, we're not even going to take the jab, the vaccination, you know. We're not hearkening to Biden's words. we will not hearken to the king's words to go from our religion, either on the right hand or the left. Now when he had left speaking these words, there came one of the Jews in the sight of all to sacrifice on the altar which was at Modian, according to the king's commandment. See, so this is some wickedness, Which thing, when Matthias saw, he was inflamed with zeal. He was pissed off, and his reins trembled. Neither could he forbear to show his anger according to judgment. Wherefore he ran and slew him upon the altar. So this Israelite was getting ready to do a sacrifice unto the commandment of a king, in the custom of a Greek. And Matthias, the Lord put the spirit on him to just kill that dude, on the altar. Verse 25. Also the king's commissioner, who compelled men to sacrifice, he killed at that time, and the altar he pulled down. So he tore that shit down, That's that spirit of the Lord jumping on you, man. And when the spirit of the Lord jumps on you, man, you have superhuman powers and abilities, man. We read about it time and time again in the scriptures. Thus he dealt zealously for the law of Yahweh, as like as Phinehas did unto Zambri the son of Salam. And Matthias cried throughout the city with a loud voice, saying, Whosoever is zealous of the law and maintaineth the covenant, let him follow me. So he's saying, hey, I'm calling all the remnant. That's what we're doing. We're saying, who's zealous, who's passionate for this truth? Come follow us, man. We're following Yahweh Shai, but get in line, get in order. Verse 28, so he and his sons fled into the mountains and left all that ever they had in the city. All right, they left the world, man. They walked away from all the heathen shit, That's what we got to do. 1 Maccabees 2:29, then many that sought after justice and judgment went down into the wilderness to dwell there, both they and their children and their wives and their cattle, because afflictions increased sore upon them. See, so that's what Jacob's trouble is going to be like, but worse, You're going to have women, children. You're going to have a lot of desperate women in Jacob's trouble. When the shit hits the fan in Babylon, America, the women are going to be brought low. The heathen are going to be brought low. The men of the Lord will be exalted. Let me see. So, but this is just the moral of the story, man. Basically, the remnant, nothing new under the sun. So the remnant is going to come back to their power. We're going to repent. We're going to follow Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai and his laws, statutes, and commandments, and we won't hearken unto the commandments of the king, just like our forefathers. These men we're reading about in Maccabees, Matthias and his sons. See? So just wanted to bring out this account, it was a faith builder, showing you the elect that, hey, just like our forefathers, we can have that same spirit of denying this Edomite his new world order. We don't have to fall in line with that thing, just like our forefathers didn't. See? But and let me just jump to 37 real quick, because it says, this is Matthias still talking. He said, but verse 37, but said, let us die all in our innocency. Heaven and earth will testify for us that ye put us to death wrongfully. So if you become in the situation where you get caught up because you're not taking the microchip, and Esau wants to chop your head off with a guillotine or throw you in a FEMA camp, hey man, you're gonna, heaven and earth will testify for us, meaning those angels. It's martyrship. That's the kind of mindset we got to be in. This is why the suffering and everything we got to go through, all the tribulations, hey man, we got to rejoice, even though it may be hard to, but we got to rejoice even though the sufferings come upon us. And you know, if we have to, hey, die with integrity. Just, you know, take up your cross, take up your burden, just like Yahweh Shai did, you know. So with that, I want to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakak Wadash. Double honors goes out to the elder apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me this truth. Also want to acknowledge all the Akiam for pushing this truth with sincerity, all right? Shalom to the elect.